No, so this is really quick about Kai, but this is really about the first time voters. This is what this was set up for. And this was actually, this meeting was actually recommended by another lady that helped me out after they found out that I was employing Kai, and she was upset and came to my office, and we talked and we started brainstorming how can we reach first time voters. And it was really her inspiration to have this meeting and to have it today, because tomorrow is the last. Can I turn this up a little bit? Am I loud enough? Okay. I can hardly. Sometimes when I speak in a microphone, it's like really blasting, but the audience can hardly hear it. What's that? Can you? I am using a microphone, but can you not hear the microphone, or do you hear me? Okay. All right. So yeah, there was a lady that came in, and she was really irate with me, and I told her about what I was trying to accomplish. And so I had a great chief deputy, and a month and a half ago, uh, one of the cities in the county needed a city manager, and he was such a great chief deputy that they recruited him away and gave him a great. It was a career advancement for him, because now he's the top guy instead of the second guy. But it left me in a really tight position because I had an election coming up, and I'm on the ballot, so I didn't know whether I was going to be reelected or if the other guy would win. If I win, I could have had a chief deputy for 4+ years, but if I lost, then the chief deputy would be there for about 6 months or shorter, depending on how it worked. So it's hard to recruit somebody to tell them, "Hey, I want you to quit your job and come to work for me," but you don't know if you're going to work for 6 months or if you're going to work for 4 years and 6 months. So I was kind of put in a position where I really struggled with that. So I said, okay, instead of making it a struggle, let's make it a positive. There are a couple things that I've been trying to get to that I haven't been able to get to because we keep having these uh, propositions come up and referendums, and that takes up my staff's time. And I just can't get to these projects because another referendum comes up or petition packets come up. And so I was struggling with that. And so I finally, my chief deputy left, and I had this position that I could fill, because filling a position for a regular employee in government is really lengthy. I wish there were a really quick thing where I could hire somebody the next day, but appointed positions are not as lengthy. I don't have to go through the recruitment process. I don't have to post on the web. I can really bring them in, and it still took us about 2 weeks to get them in. Um, but once there was like the discussion about Kai, I didn't have time to say, sorry, let's go back and start all over. I wouldn't have gotten anybody in before the election, and it was just difficult. And I I needed somebody that had a lot of reach with the youth, because I'm going to get to the 16 to, sorry, the first time voters, 18, 19, 20-year olds. I'll get to that. But I needed somebody that could reach out to them quickly and had access to them, not necessarily through his channels, but the knowledge of how to do it. Because I don't want the partisanship of what he's doing. I just wanted the ability and knowledge. And kind of what happened is um, Lindsay Aerts got a hold of it, and she ran an article on it. And if you look at Lindsay Aerts's engagement on her Twitter feed, she usually gets between 500 and 2,000 uh, engagements with her news pieces. But when she ran that piece with Kai, she ended up getting nearly 40,000 uh, engagements on that piece. So the engagement itself actually spurred, um, I hate to use the controversy, but it spurred more engagement, which actually probably what brought you guys here today. And one of the things that it really did is there's a lady that called me on Friday evening, and she was really upset. And so I talked her through why I brought Kai on, and it was to address the first time voters. And I told her it's a short term. So with Kai, it's short terms, 2 to 3 months. That's it. And it is to help us interact with youth and to find out how to get them to get their ballots validated at a higher rate. And she kind of started getting excited and said, well, can I come and talk with you about some more ideas that I have? And I said, absolutely. Come on Monday. So it's just like the next week business day. Because I talked to her on Friday, she came on Monday, and we had a great conversation. And she brought up, says, well, you really ought to try and reach out to the parents of these youth. And that hadn't really crossed my mind. You know, I was trying really hard to reach out to the young adults, the 18 and 19-year-olds, trying our hardest, trying to get to them, and they weren't engaging. So she said, have a town hall meeting and invite the parents. And it's the parents that are going to control the registration process of their kids at 18, 19, and hopefully actually pre-register when they're 16 and 17. So that's really the impetus of why we're having this meeting. And I had another lady that called, or she was emailing me back and forth yesterday, or no, I think Monday or Tuesday. Things run together when you're running an election. So she emailed me, and she was also very upset. I emailed her back, trying to tell her kind of what we were doing. I pointed to the video. I don't know if you've seen the video I have to explain the situation. And she emailed me back. I emailed her back. She emailed me back. And I said, hey, can you just call me? Here's my phone number. I want to answer your questions, but I don't have time to go back and forth. And she didn't call me, but she sat down and wrote her ideas down and shared those with me. And so now we have another way of reaching out to that young population and their parents, and they're great ideas. And so again, this was never about Kai's followers and what he was bringing, and the narrative that he has. This was about reaching out to the first-time voters. So now I want to show you kind of really quickly. Sorry, I had it up. No, it's this one. Okay, I actually want to go to this one first. This is really why I'm doing this. So we have a lot of data that we gather during an election. And data is great, but data is only as good as you compile it to give you meaningful information. And during an election, it's really hard to take the time to put all this data together. I'm probably I don't know if it's kind of small. Can you maximize that, Kai? Just trying to maximize the screen. Control. Yeah. Actually, just make it the whole screen. So I sat down with the data and tried to compile to find out what the real data was showing about the age groups of 18 to 25. So if you look at the top row, the top section, the top chart, that first row is 18 to 25-year-olds, and that's what I was looking at. And it shows that they actually participate really well in the presidential election. They were 15.5% of the voters. And the 18 to 25, that's only 7-year bracket. All the other brackets are 10 years. So for them to be 15% and the 26 to 35s to be 20%, it's probably about the same. But the hard part is a challenged ballot is when you send us your ballot envelope and it's signed, we have to compare that signature that we have with the signature that we have on file. And the signature that we have for 18 to 20-year-olds, guess what signature that is? It's their driver license when they were 16. And it's not a good signature. They're not learning they don't learn cursive in school anymore, and they just kind of put something down. And then 2-3 years later, they go to vote, and they don't remember what their signature looked like. They don't think to, well, let me pull out my driver's license and see how I signed it then. So we are rejecting, and we have to reject it according to code, because it says signatures have to be significantly similar. And we look at it, it just breaks our heart. We kind of go, it's probably them, but the code says significantly similar, so we have to reject it and put them through the cure process. It's called the cure. We have to send them an email, a letter, a phone call, and state statute says we have to attempt to reach them twice. And so if we send them a letter and email, we could say, that's good enough. That's good enough for us. Sorry, you didn't respond to us. We're not going to count your ballot. But in Utah County, we've established a procedure to reach out to them 5 times. So we send an email, we send a letter, and then we have our staff call them 3 times in trying to reach them. And that's very costly to the taxpayer to have my staff sitting there calling each one of those. And in 2024, there were 4,039 of that age bracket that we rejected. And we ended up curing, about 1,400 of them. So we ended up with 2,600 ballots for that age, for 18 to 25, that we did not cure. Because that age bracket, they don't respond very well to emails. They don't respond very well to letters being sent to them. And we can't text them because the FCC regulations say we have to receive pre-approval to use text to reach out to them. So we try to call them. And even when we call them, I instruct my staff to call them. They're not going to pick up. So hang up and call them again. And that's 1 call, not 2 calls. That's considered 1 call. Because a lot of times people will pick it up if they see the same number coming in twice. And we still had only 35%. And so it was kind of breaking my heart that we were not being able to cure these. So this is why we brought on Kai to help us reach out to them. And in discussions with this one lady that we talked on Friday night, she recommended, like I said, to reach out to the parents. And so that's what we're doing. And so I actually sent an email out yesterday. This was kind of a difficult data to gather. So I pulled out every voter that was between 18 to 21 that hasn't voted yet. Because if we do have a record that they voted, that means we have a signature form because they did get approved. So I pulled out any new voter between 18 and 21, and I captured their address. And then I linked the whole voter database to that address and pulled out anyone that was between the ages of 38 to about 64, assuming that would be their parents with an 18 to 21-year-old. And I sent an email out to everyone, and I didn't limit it to just Republicans because this is a Republican primary pretty much. But I'm reaching out to everybody so that they can understand what has to happen. And it's a really easy solution. So we have these forms. And if we could get this into the hands, and we have sent these to the youth, but they just don't respond. So if I can get this in the hands of parents and say, if you have a first-time voter, fill this out and send it back to us. And it's basically a new signature of how their signature is currently. And they have to put their name and driver license so that we can find them. There's like a lot of John Smith. So if they wrote John Smith, we would never know whose signature that was. So they have to give us a little bit more information so we can find them in our database. So they ask for their printer name, sign it, give us your driver license or 4 digits of your social security number and your email or phone number so we can get in contact with you if we can't find you. If they would fill out one of these, we would approve their signatures at the high rate because it's a current signature. And hopefully they sign it the same way when they fill their ballot out. But this is the key. If we could get this in their hands, and like I said, we're having a hard time doing that by us reaching out to them with the normal means of normal channels. And so that's why I invited people out here to give me ideas. How do we reach them? Because we're struggling. And I just got an email from another county clerk today. Now that elections are starting, he wrote an email saying that we now have you have to put the 4 digits on the ballot envelope. And so he kind of broke it down by age bracket. And that age bracket, they were rejecting at a high rate also for that age bracket. And I just hate it that, we're bringing these people in, they're participating, but they're not really. The other thing that was mentioned to me is one of my staff that looks at all the signatures, she does a third pass on the signatures to see if we can really dig down to verify the signatures. And what she said she's finding is it's the mother that's signing for the children. A lot of them are, Mormon missionary moms, or they're off to college, and their ballot still comes to the house, and they may be talking on the phone, but the mother signs it, and we can see that because we can look at a voter, and there's a residence tab on the screen, and we can hit residence of everybody that lives in that same household, and then we can go through and see the signature styles of other people in the household, so we can kind of see, if it's somebody in the household that's signing it based on the style of the signature. So these mothers are signing, and that's a felony. And it's a hard one. And normally, if it's a first offense, I usually call the mother and tell them it's a felony. But part of it committing a crime is it has to have intent. So we don't prosecute these because they don't know really, and there has to be intent for it to be prosecuted. So we just tell them we're not counting this ballot because your child didn't sign it, but we're also putting a note in your file that if it happens again, you do have knowledge now, and so there is intent. And we've never seen it duplicated. They never signed it again, but it's kind of a stern warning to the mothers, don't sign it, and so they do it right. And the fix is really easy. And this is what we need to reach out to the mothers and say, here's how you do it. If they're on a mission, or if they're away to school, or if they're living away temporarily, some of them go out to work for the summer in another state, all they have to do is give us a mailing address. They can stay registered where they are. Give us a mailing address, we'll update it, and the ballot will go right to them. They can fill it out and mail it back. Or if they're living out of the country, get in contact with us and we can set them up for an electronic ballot. We can send them, if they're out of the country, we can send them an electronic ballot and they can vote electronically. So this 15% of rejection rate doesn't have to happen. But I'm asking for ideas. If you have ideas, I'm reaching out. We reached out quite a bit to bring a lot of people here, but obviously there's only 20 or so people here. How do we reach out to get more people here, more people engaged, more people not wanting to just scroll through their telephone? We need engagement on this issue so that we can start fixing this issue and bringing them in. Should I show that video? Yes, absolutely.
I know that a lot of social studies teachers who teach government prioritize talking about voting, talk about how to vote, but it would be real easy to share with the district, this is our presentation about problems with voting, give it to the teachers, ask them to share it, or go to the different high school principals in the county and say, we would love to come to your government classes and give this presentation to talk to the seniors about it. And I know that's not the parents, but it is a lot closer. You could even probably give the materials to the schools to hand out at like senior registration, right? Because the parents do come to that when they go to pick up their textbooks or something like that. You could include a notice like, hey, your child might turn 18 this year. Here is a link, a QR code to a website where they can learn about some common pitfalls that come with early voting registration.
Okay, so here's the question I have: is how many high schools are there in Utah County? No, that's. But I'm wondering if should we make a video so that it can be shown, or do we bring in the teachers and teach the teachers to teach it? That's that idea's been brought up, and it's been going through my mind. How would we incorporate that?
You could offer both. I think the teachers would like you'd probably get a higher engagement if you let the teachers do it on their own time. If you made like a short video presentation or created like a handout that they could print and just said, sent it to the districts and said, can you send this to your high school government teachers? I bet it would get disseminated.
That would be a great idea. Yeah, because I was just trying to think through the logistics of us going out to every high school, and every high school has, how many periods do they have now? It was 6 when I was in school. There's 6 different classes. So the number of high schools, and there were different government teachers, not everyone. So it just, I was thinking, it's probably 24 classes times the number of high schools. And I just don't know if I have the staff to do that. But if I could create a video, a compelling video, or even engage with a real professional teacher and create that video and disseminate that, because I don't know if I'm the greatest teacher. um, but if I could work with a teacher that would be willing to do that and present the data, and just having these forms, they can print the forms out themselves. And these can be emailed back to us. They can take a picture of it. They can scan it. We just have to get it back. And we're not too picky about how we get it back, just that it has to be a wet signature, and get that back. And that would solve the great majority of it. And then I guess in that education, we would also still have to explain, don't let your parents sign it. Don't let them, commit a fraud or forgery. Yeah, yeah. And how to, update your address with a mailing address and keep your physical address there. The other thing on these signature packets that go around to get something on the ballot, here in Utah County, we have 2 very large universities, and we also have MTech. And a lot of the kids live in an apartment while they're going to school, but they still kind of have that connection to their family home. And when they sign these petition packets, they sign their apartment address, but they're registered at their family address. And so we have to reject those signatures. And so that would be good to teach them also, is if you're registered and you haven't changed your registration, use your family home address when you sign these petition packets, because that was a large rejection rate. You had a question? Yeah, and that's being incorporated now, but we're still dealing with legacy data. And so moving forward, we can start doing that. But I wish that we could just send it to them. Yes. And now we could lobby a legislator, because if you could lobby a legislator and you could probably get that in there faster than if you lobbied the DMV. So great idea, and that's why I've got you guys here. Thank you for that idea. Yes, Karen. That's semantics. I don't know if is it, or yeah. Yeah. That'd be we'll look into that. We're writing it down, so we'll look into it. But yeah, well, it's also so they can pick it up on the yeah. Okay, sorry. Um, I had a thought. Well, I might come back to it.
So when we fill out the ballot, we put in our email and phone number right on the ballot. So can't that be used for curing the ballot? I mean, that's the whole purpose of putting your information, right?
Yeah, and we have to look at the legality of that also. That's crossed our mind, but
I thought my impression was when you put that information on the ballot, you were giving permission to
to
say,
call,
I'm calling.
to
I
call. It doesn't say, maybe we need to change it to say we can call you or text you. Yeah, that would. So
Well, I'm
I think we
confused
need to
because
change
I
the
don't
ballot
know
to say,
when you put down a phone number to say, about this ballot, that this assumes that I'd be surprised if you think you can't call it, but
because you're not a
okay,
lawyer.
I'm not. I'm not.
You're
And
starting to understand when Bill Clinton said that depends on what is.
yeah,
You start to understand what he
okay.
was really
Well, maybe
saying.
that's the problem. But the other thing is
Hold
that
it closer so they can hear you on the
when you
record.
register to vote, you have a signature initially. You're having a paper to resubmit the signature. But what is the problem with the signatures that you already have? And how would you know if it was a problem? Like my son, or we already voted. My
Right.
son already voted, so did I. How would he know that there might be a problem with his signature?
We send out an email, we send out a letter, and we'll call them 5 times or 3 times.
Okay, so, but how would you know other than that until you see a problem? You don't know. But
There's ballot tracks. Does the ballot track show if we
no, you're
reject
right.
it?
We signed up for ballot
So,
tracking
yeah,
and
so
everything.
ballot tracks,
Right.
and you can sign up for ballot tracks and see and get a notification from them also.
But why wouldn't the signature that he put that's already on his voter registration be good? Why would that be a problem?
That's what we're trying to get, because the only signature we have for first time voters is their driver license signature,
And why doesn't that work?
because it was 2 to 3 years ago when they were 16, and it was on a digital pad rather than on a piece of paper with a pen, and sometimes with their finger or a stylus. It's just not, it doesn't represent them now. So we actually have the ability to store 5 signatures. If they actually filled out a paper registration, we'll have that. And that's actually better if they do it that way. Then we have a real signature. But then we have the driver license or online registration. And then after they vote for 3 times, we start gathering your signature from the ballot envelope because we scan every ballot envelope, that signature. And as you keep voting, we delete the previous one, the oldest one, and add the newer one. So people say, my signature has changed so much over the years. Yeah, it does, but we've been keeping up with you. As you vote, and those that participate, we're getting that new signature and we're deleting, the 1, 3, year and a half or 2 years back. Does that make sense? Okay. He's got a question back here.
Well, hopefully this is constructive in terms of like helping both with the logistics and also some of the backlash you're facing. I'm curious, with the political appointment, do you have a sense of like how many of these signature failures are college students?
We don't keep that statistic. I mean, we only have a certain number of data points, but we know that they're between the ages of 18 to 25.
And so with that, like,
So
do you have addresses that you could have like geolocated?
well, we have addresses, yes, but sometimes it's their parents' address, so we don't know if they're away at school. Like I was saying on the petition packets, they're away at school, but they're still registered at their parents, and that's the only way that I can make a connection to inviting parents is if they are registered at the same address.
Okay, because I'm just guessing a decent chunk is probably students in the county, right?
Oh yeah.
And so I was thinking in terms of like doing outreach towards the community and trying to maintain the transparency that you're doing, like working with the offices of civic engagement at the universities would be a positive step forward, especially if you're looking for a nonpartisan way to kind of demonstrate the transparency, right, and the legitimacy of what you're trying to do, right? So the Office of Civic Engagement at BYU does a lot of this type of activity amongst their students, and then also there's I'm blanking on the UVU one. I know that. What?
We can reach out to them.
Institute of I forget. I know the guy who runs it.
Well, there's the Herbert Institute there, which
it's related to the Herbert Institute. So both of them would, I'm sure, be really happy to engage with the county and the clerk's office to be able to help like put forward campaigns and manage this, especially on campuses as well. And they can do it in a less partisan looking manner. And so I think that could be a potential tool that you could use to try to manage the public perception of what's going on.
Okay, so if you can tell everyone to stop issuing referendums so we don't have to do those packets verifications, we could do a lot of that. But, I would also like if you have connections with that.
Yeah, I'm in the political science department at BYU, and so I know these people.
And if they could reach out to us with these great ideas, I mean, that would be even better.
Yeah, they're really gung-ho, so I'm happy if you're willing, they would, I'm sure, be more than happy to.
Yeah, give them my contact information.
Okay.
I would love that. Kind of the same thing with high schools. If they could reach out to us as much as we reach out to them and make it a two-way conversation rather than us trying to dictate upon them. Seriously, we're trying to find ways to correct this issue. I think right here.
One thing I've done in the past is my background is in business process improvement and Lean Six Sigma. So ultimately it's you need to meet people at where they're at rather than trying to force them into your business processes. And so the way I see this is a lot of the youth now are not open to calls, they're not open to emails, and so we have to meet them where they're at. And many government entities are starting to have more of a social media presence. So a thing you could do is do a couple A/B tests with small geolocation and targeted ads towards these youth. You could do it at BYU. You could have a little geolocation mapped around BYU and have it targeted towards 18 to 25-year-olds and just have some quick short video that says register to vote and have a link below. And you could do a couple videos to see which ones are most successful and at which locations they're most successful. But if you're wanting people to be more involved, you're going to have to meet them where they're at.
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to do. And that's the difficult part because we don't know because we run elections, but now we're getting into this realm of social influence. And yeah, and that's what we're trying to adapt and change. I probably need to go to the commissioners and ask for some kind of a budget because I don't have the budget for it. So that's trying to reach out. Yeah, I started small. Okay. No, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I guess I just wanted to add on to some of the thoughts. I feel like there's an opportunity for a real culture shift. And the fact that you guys are interested means that you could have a real effect on this. But I think your time spent in high schools would be well worth it, and colleges. You were talking about, there's a lot of things, a lot of information I'm getting here with, I didn't know you could pre-register at 16 or 17 years old. And so that's something you could start. I love the idea of using the required senior government class, because they're right on their way to going off and out in the world, and that's kind of like their last opportunity to before they leave the nest potentially. But starting that conversation when they're 16 and 17, and like I feel that, while I know your office is very busy, that it would be time well spent, and then it would roll into, um, I feel like that's the beginning of like societal changes, is like where civic responsibility and civic duty becomes second nature when you're putting your efforts in the right arenas. And so I just wanted to add my 2 cents that you could start younger in high school, and then also that I can't imagine that would ever be wasted.
Yeah, and then even if we can start younger, but there's still they would be signing that form as a pre-registration at 16, and now at 18, we still need to emphasize, get this form, update your signature, because we want to approve your ballot. Yeah, yeah. Okay, yes.
Clerk Davidson, thank you for holding this. We really all appreciate this.
Well, thank you.
Why not just have something that's inserted in with all the mail-in ballots that's educating them?
Well,
Your
because that
signature need
signature
to
would come back at
match.
the same time as the ballot, which would negate. We're comparing.
Well, there's
a
5
single-
of them, like you said, right? And there is a problem
Yeah,
with the youth and their signature. So if you need to do that, why not send out a material telling them to go to the
Yeah.
county clerk,
and that's
provide that wet signature so that they have the second one on hand. Right? Yeah. I mean, I looked it up real quick. You're going to know best. I'm going to rely on your knowledge about what can and cannot be included
Right.
in with the mail-in ballot process. But that seems like the very simplest method. They're already registered. This is the quickest way that we can
Yeah.
reach out to them.
No, we'll write it down and look into that. I just think if we send out that form with the ballot
Not the form,
But-
just education about it.
about how to do it. Okay, so yeah,
You have one signature maybe, and it's your signature is coming from your driver's license. Most likely, if you're in this age group,
reach out to us and come in and give us
so we get another wet signature.
before you send in your ballot.
The verification process. Many people don't understand that the verification process is purely signature. There was a lot of bills
Yeah.
this year that went to try and change that process. It's totally made confusion about how it goes. And now we're also providing either our last four of our social or driver's license on there.
Yes.
So I think it just added more confusion to that process. If we can add some sort of educational quick material in with the ballot, it would be really nice.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Hi. As someone in this age demographic, I've pre-registered to vote. I'm 16.
So I'm not supposed to ask you how old you are in that bracket.
Mm-hmm. And someone currently taking a government and civics class. Granted, I'm taking it in the summer, so right now, so the content is like shortened and stuff. But I think even just shoving it in with the voting stuff, we spent a lot of time on that. That would be great. And a lot of what the teachers do at my school specifically is like show videos before class, or just as class is starting. So just educational stuff like that. I also think expanding on social media would be great. I've seen the only stuff I see regarding Utah on social media is the Department of Transportation account. It has it's funny. I know people who don't even live in Utah that follow it and stay up to date with the stuff. I think that's free. Like um it's no budget and it's the easiest thing you can do. If there's anybody like over marketing here, just have them, like that's just going to be the easiest way. And when people see like, oh, this is Utah stuff, like they'll actually like follow it and stay up to date with it.
So you made me think of something. So we've got a government teacher here. Do they teach videography at all in high school?
I know my my school has like designated teachers for that.
What if we combine the two classes and say, you guys, we're going to teach you what you need to say, and have students be the person teaching that, and work with the high schools, and maybe a couple high schools do that and work together on a project like that, so that the students are learning how to make something real and applicable with something that they really need to learn.
I mean, yeah, I think that's great in theory, but like also like if I'm gonna be in that class, I don't want to have to like sit through like I did take videography. Like I want to like I'm in that class to learn specifically about like creating my own stuff, my own films, not necessarily just taking like my government
Yeah,
homework.
but you guys are much more creative than we are. I've seen some of the videos that students make, and they're just creative. So it would be a creative, and it would be a little bit more sticky. It's got to be sticky, or they're going to watch it and think great, and then they're going to go to the next class. But if you can use students and make it a little more sticky, and it's just an idea. I'm not saying we're going to do that, but it would be interesting to see if we could combine the two classes and see if we could come up with something really sticky. Yeah. And
I've got my
combine
own
them.
mic. So we do have Kai as a resource presently. We could be using him to make some of those campaigns that are a little bit more targeted at the youth. We do have some channels that we don't normally use, TikTok for one, because that does tend to be where we have a lot more of the youth at this point. But I do want
Can we
to.
use TikTok?
I don't
think,
know. That's
I
the
think we're
question.
restricted by the
I
governor.
don't know if we are anymore since it's now U.S. based, kind of.
Yeah.
That might be an Ezra question.
Yeah, we'll need to
Or
look at that
Brandon.
again.
Anyways, we do also, if we have that statistic for first-time voters, can we send out the signature form unsolicited a month
Yeah,
beforehand?
we
So
can
that
do that,
doesn't.
and we've
Okay.
done it. It's just, again, they don't get their
They
mail,
don't get it. Okay.
and they don't see it, and it ends up in
Okay.
the trash.
Hmm.
So it's trying to engage. Like I think someone said, we got to go to where they are, not where we would like them to be. Yeah.
Okay, without divulging my age, I am the grandmother of teenagers, and I know that at that age they're least likely to listen to their parents and to be forced to sign something because their parent said is not going to be effective. So out of all of the suggestions, I think sending out an email requesting a signature by their parents, who's going to stop the parents from signing it? If they're already doing it for the ballots, they're going to sign it and the signatures are going to match. So it's not going to work. I think that coming on part of the schools or the colleges are the best ideas, and letting them with their creativity and their understanding and their culture facilitate something that as a grandmother I wouldn't even come close to understanding.
Very good idea. Thank you. Any other comments? Yes.
I wasn't certain if you were separating the meeting from, because I am interested in this issue as well, but I was also wondering um, if we're addressing issues with the appointment, with Kai's appointment potentially at this time, or would you rather wait?
It's mainly for the 16-year-old. I just kind of
Yeah.
addressed. Did you come in after I explained? the
No, I was
appointment?
here the whole
Okay.
time.
If you wanted to address it really quick, you can.
Okay, just because we're talking about like
Yeah.
utilizing Kai's knowledge of social media, I think that the large concerns that I had is for the outreach that you're attempting. Let me gather my thoughts. It's it's hard to have some of their earliest government experiences um, be led by someone with concerning rhetoric, I guess. That I I get in a vacuum, like if he could provide his services without without needing to utilize his own followers and base, but I'm assuming that's also part of the appeal is he already has some built-in followers, and so how could he not use that platform unless you guys specifically prohibit it? Um, and then and now your discussion at the beginning was also a little bit concerning because it you gave at least the impression that you wouldn't have made this appointment with someone so controversial if you weren't in a tight spot. That you loved your previous the person who previously held this position, and so there was a lot of talking that just made me concerned that you were like any port in a storm when we have, especially maybe because we have two universities so close, that you could still get that age demographic, somebody who has that social media expertise and knowledge that wouldn't be as concerning to members of the public.
To a certain demographic of
Sure.
the public. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you expressing that concern. But again, we only brought him in here to set up the process, not so much to influence it with his demographic, because I have reached out to all demographics. I've reached out. What's the name of the group I reached out to? Unite Utah.
Utah Indivisible.
Yeah, Indivisible. I've reached out to Harmony across the street. Uh, I've reached out to Karen, who runs Burn. So trust me, Kai has no authority over anything. He's not going to affect anything. He's not going to affect how we approach this. It was strictly just to kind of give us a heads up as to how to start reaching out. But he's not going to affect anything. And my elections director wouldn't allow me to do that. She won't do it. So I hope I hope you can look at what we're trying to accomplish rather than who's doing the work. And I don't know if I could say anything to quell your worry, but just I hope you can have some trust. And I'm trying to be as sincere as possible that he is not going to affect anything that happens in the election department based upon what he has said in the past. It won't happen. He's a chief deputy, and it's appointed position, so I didn't have to go through the bureaucracy of getting a new position, a new hire as a merit employee, which takes a lot longer than appointed position. So he's just in here to work on this one project, and then he's done. The max is like 3 months. It might linger into the next, because he's a full-time student. So he's pretty much done after school starts. He might work a little bit just to kind of keep us going through, but he knows it's a short term. And so he's not going to affect any policy or anything that we're doing. I think I have demonstrated that I'm very neutral, especially with the Prop 4 petition packet, where I found 28 fraudulent packets and turned them over for prosecution. I'm not going to let his rhetoric enter into what we are doing. Yes, Karen. I am willing to take those risks because you have given me some very good other insights and other aspects of what we're doing. So I really appreciate what you have to say, Karen.
All I wanted to say was that I know this is being live streamed and people were here to learn about the particular issue of youth voters. So you have agreed to talk to us later about Kai. So I was just trying to get us back on track a little bit and we can address that later.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So we're done with Kai, okay? It's now just the first time voter issues. So as long as it's a first time voter issue. I know you guys just walked in and you missed the presentation. Oh, were they cleaning out there now? Okay. Anything else? Yeah, I'm going to show a little video.
For first-time voters, can you tell us why you specifically chose Kai over anyone else, and how many people you interviewed
Yeah, so
that could possibly
yeah,
also fit that?
so we had addressed it earlier at the beginning, and I was called out in saying that this is about the 16-year-olds. If you want to stay afterward, I can address it again. I hope that helps. And it is being recorded. You can always go back and watch it again.
Real-world case study about what happens when the literal logistics of casting a ballot start to systematically. Welcome to this explainer. You know, we spend a ton of time on the big, flashy political narratives, right? But today, we're zooming in on the actual mechanics of voting. We're unpacking a really fascinating real-world case study about what happens when the literal logistics of casting a ballot start to systematically fail a very specific demographic. We're going to look at one local county clerk's highly unconventional attempts to fix a massive spike in ballot rejections among first-time voters. It's a story all about data, bureaucracy, modern communication, and what happens when trying to solve an administrative bottleneck collides head-on with public perception. So let's dive into this.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. Part 1, the first-time voter problem. Part 2, the signature verification hurdle. Part 3, an unconventional influencer solution.
Let's jump right into part 1, the first-time voter problem and this disproportionate rate of ballot rejections. Local government processes can honestly seem pretty mundane sometimes, just pushing paper and checking boxes. But the data generated by these processes can occasionally reveal some pretty startling disparities. Check out the sheer scale of the problem here. 15%. In this specific county, the average ballot rejection rate across all demographics is actually really low, hovering right around 3%. But for 18 and 19-year-olds, that rate skyrockets to over 15%. I mean, they are having their ballots tossed out at a rate 5 times higher than the general public. And as you can see, this drop-off absolutely isn't random, it is highly concentrated. That huge 15% rejection rate lands squarely on the absolute youngest first-time voters. The literal moment a voter turns 20, the rejection rate drops to 13.6%, and it just keeps steadily ticking down as people get older. For the county clerk, this was a massive red flag. This wasn't just individual user error. It was a systemic issue that was unintentionally disenfranchising the youngest voters.
Moving on to part 2, the signature verification hurdle, or basically why the system is failing these young voters.
So why exactly is this happening? Well, the root cause really comes down to the operational friction of identity verification. It's a fundamental mismatch in data. When you vote by mail, the county has to compare the signature on your ballot envelope to the signature they have on file. The catch? For a first-time 18-year-old voter, the only signature on record is usually from when they got their driver's license at age 16. Think about how much your handwriting changed in those 2 years. It's like 2 completely different people writing. Because those signatures don't match up perfectly, the system just automatically flags and rejects the ballot. Now, when a ballot gets rejected, the county kicks off what's called a cure process to reach out and verify the voter's identity. State statute actually only requires 2 communication attempts. But to fight this crazy high rejection rate, the clerk's office went way beyond that. They literally tried to reach voters 5 separate times: an email, a physical letter, and 3 distinct phone calls. As you can imagine, it's an incredibly labor-intensive and costly process to have staff manually dialing up young voters one by one. But here's the absolute paradox of the whole situation. Government bureaucracy relies on outdated communication methods to reach a demographic that simply ignores them. 18 and 19-year-olds are not reliably checking physical mail. You might ask, well, why not just text them? Actually, federal FCC regulations require strict pre-approval to use text messaging for official communication. There's no quick way around it. So the county is forced to call, and let's be real, young people routinely ignore unrecognized phone numbers. The system is just fundamentally out of sync with modern habits.
Because of these immense communication barriers, the cure process just falls flat most of the time. Only 20% of 18-year-olds actually manage to successfully resolve their rejected ballots. It bumps up slightly to 33% for 19-year-olds and 35% for 20-year-olds. The clerk noted that this just breaks his heart. They end up throwing away way too many ballots from young folks who genuinely believe they are participating in democracy, when in reality, their vote is just being silenced.
Which brings us to part 3, an unconventional influencer solution, and how they tried to bridge this gap. Knowing the traditional methods were totally failing, the clerk needed a new operational fix, and they needed it fast. A sudden vacancy opened up a short-term 2 to 3 month hiring window just weeks before the elections. Enter the influencer strategy. The clerk hired a young, highly vocal political influencer on a short-term contract. Looked at purely from a logistical standpoint, the goal was super straightforward. This influencer already had direct access to that exact 18 to 19-year-old demographic. The plan was to leverage that existing attention to get updated signatures and prevent those ballots from being discarded. Now, as we all know, local government doesn't operate in a vacuum. Unconventional administrative problem solving quickly slammed headfirst into a highly polarized political environment. The media and the public completely fixated on the specific person who was hired, rather than the underlying administrative goal. Because the chosen influencer was known for controversial statements, a massive public campaign basically exploded overnight. The office was absolutely flooded with an influx of angry phone calls and emails, putting the clerk squarely in the hot seat.
But right in the middle of all this intense backlash, a truly fascinating interaction happened. The clerk shared an anecdote about an angry mother who called in to complain about the hire. But instead of getting defensive, the clerk just calmly explained the exact administrative reason: to stop the sky-high rejection rate of first-time voter ballots. Once the mother heard the actual logistics, her entire tone flipped. The clerk recalled she actually kind of started getting excited that I was trying to reach out to the first-time voters because she has one. So that incredibly tense, angry phone call literally transformed into an in-person meeting. The concerned mother, her first-time voter daughter, and another citizen actually set up a sit-down with the county clerk for the very next Monday. Their goal? To collaboratively brainstorm better ways to reach first-time voters and get them prepped for the election. It is such a perfect case study of how transparent communication about those underlying administrative processes can totally de-escalate public outrage and foster real impactful civic collaboration.
Even with those productive conversations happening, critics was still demanding the clerk just fire the influencer and swap in someone else for the outreach program. But that completely ignores the slow-ticking clock of local government administration. The clerk pointed out that onboarding a brand new government employee takes a solid 2 to 3 weeks. With the election literally just 3 weeks away, pivoting to a new hire was mathematically and administratively impossible. They were firmly locked into their strategy, which really leaves us looking toward the future, right? This county's struggle shines a massive spotlight on the ongoing gap between outdated government protocols and how modern youth actually communicate. When 15% of first-time voters are having their voices silenced simply because a 16-year-old's driver's license signature doesn't perfectly match their 18-year-old handwriting, the system is clearly crying out for an update. So, I'll leave you with this question to chew on. How must local governments adapt their communication to ensure first-time voters aren't left behind? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep asking those big questions about the fine print of our democracy.
So I do know that there's some concern of Kai, but I couldn't change it. I headed down that path, and the ultimate goal is to some outreach for first-time voters. And what I really am excited about is this is kind of a pilot program. This is it. We're doing it here in Utah County. We're the county that is instigating this outreach to try and solve this problem. And so I hope you can overlook that. I don't know if I made a mistake or not, but he's been very helpful. He's been engaging with that mother that did come in, and they got along really well. So I hope that you can just overlook it for now. It's just 2 or 3 months, and engage with us and make the first time voters more important. And I may not be stating that in a perfect manner. I wish I could use AI in my own brain and say that as well as AI does, but I am trying my best. And if you disagree with me, please engage with me anyway to try and solve the problem. Because that's where the emphasis needs to be placed, is how do we reach them so that we're not throwing out 15% of their ballots. That needs to get down to the 3% and then put it in the cure process. And we're able to cure about half of them. I wish we could cure all of them. I wish everybody would engage with us. There needs to be more education about the whole process. You've got to engage with us, or you've got to get a signature to us beforehand so that we can approve your ballot. So it's a more extensive issue, but if we can conquer the first-time voter, I think we can start working for everybody and make every ballot count. Because that's where the ultimate goal is. Can you take them?
Instead of waiting, do you think you could start working for everybody now, since we are the taxpayers paying? I'm assuming that Kai's getting paid, so I'm assuming that since we're paying his paycheck, that you could represent your constituents and get someone that is less volatile and controversial. And I would like it, even if you've already said how many people you're interviewing, could you remind us how many people you interviewed for this position?
I did not interview anybody. It's an appointed position. And if I were to interview somebody, I would have to put it out for an announcement, which would take 2 weeks. Then I would have to get resumes and review those, and then I have to go through an interview process, and the election would be over. So I was between a rock and a hard place of getting somebody in, and I only have one position that I can appoint. Everybody else has to go through the interview process. And so I couldn't have done that.
Yesterday, someone said that they applied for that position.
Was it Allison? No, it doesn't matter. They sent me their resume.
She has graduated and has 6 years experience.
Okay. I understand that, and I appreciate this concern. I didn't know about her, and I had to have somebody there. And the only reason she applied is because I hired Kai. I had no contact with her before.
Well, Kai started on Monday, right? So we're not that far behind for you to still find someone that the community is happy with, since I thought you were working for us. That's what I was thinking.
So I am working for you. And if you, at the beginning of the meeting, so I hate doing this because the other people are here to discuss the first-time voter issue, is I only had a certain time period. And if I were to put it out there to receive applications, you're talking about a 5-week process. And my chief deputy got recruited by a local city to be the city manager. And so he was advancing his career, and I commend him for it. He showed his capableness by being my chief deputy, and that's why the city was interested in him. So when he quit, I only had a certain number of weeks before the election came. And no, let me finish it really quick. So how do you recruit somebody, a competent person, to take that position and say, well, this could be a job for 6 months, or it could be a job for 4 years. I don't know, because I'm on the ballot.
First of all, you look at what the requirements are.
So I wanted to wait until after the election, but we needed somebody. And I'm not going to convince you. I had to have somebody. I chose Kai. So I didn't want it to degrade to this back and forth. We are working on the first-time voters. That is the issue, and Karen pointed that out. If you guys want to stay after this meeting so that the others don't have to listen to it. This is about the first-time voters.
I'm sorry, but you said it was about, Karen said, let's get it back to the first time voters. You're the one that put all this stuff up talking about Kai, and then you brought Kai back into it. So I thought,
Okay.
oh, we must be done with the first time voters. If you want to go back to first time voters, let's go back, but stop bringing, I mean, you're the one that brought this whole thing up about why you hired Kai. And I'm not sure how you found out about Kai. I can only imagine it's because he has a presence on the internet. Somehow you knew about that. And if you knew about that, you knew what his presence was. You have no excuse. But I have other questions. But if you want to get back to first time voters,
Okay.
Getting back to first time voters. So here's
Yes.
the question. It seems to me like a lot of people have already voted and we have the issue. But if a person any person, and especially the people in this in the bracket there where there's a problem, if they register for Track My Ballot, at what point would you expect to get a notification that there was a problem?
So they get a notification from Track My Ballot, but not everybody. Just how many people are registered for Track My Ballot?
Well, I'm saying
There's not that many, but we send a letter, an email, and 3 phone calls. So state statute says we have to reach out to them twice. Utah County reaches out to them 5 times. So
I shouldn't worry about my son unless.
Well, does your son look at his emails? My son doesn't. Does your son look at the mail when you said this is your mail? Does he look at the mail?
I look at the mail at least.
Right. Does he pick up the
Okay,
phone
so
call?
if we're paying attention, we shouldn't have to worry.
No, if you pay attention, so that's the 20% that's paying attention.
So we could focus people on all these things, plus pay attention because we're going to notify you if there's a problem.
And that's why I'm trying to reach out to the parents a little bit so that the parents are paying closer attention to what's coming through.
But we shouldn't worry about doing anything until we get a notification if we've already voted.
Well, if you want to be reactive instead of proactive. So earlier we talked about this form.
But if we get this form, how do you verify, if we mail that form in, how do you verify it's the real person if you don't see it in person?
How do you verify that the signature on the ballot is the real person?
Well, I know, but why is this more secure than the signature I sent in the ballot if we have to mail this in?
It's not a perfect system. The only perfect system is voting in person, because then we verify before they vote rather than after. But that's the law right now. Right now, it's universal vote by mail. So we have to do something so that we can verify those people after we receive their ballot. So they have to be able to print their name. They have to they have to know their driver license number or their social security number. It's doing what we can.
Clerk Davidson, can I jump in?
Yes.
It's within 48 hours. If your ballot's been rejected because of one of these issues, we have to notify you within 48 hours. I think that was maybe what you were asking for.
I think at this point, to get the young people to vote, we need to have somebody that can reach out to them. Now, whether you disagree or whether you agree how it was done, if I'm hiring somebody, I'm going to hire somebody that is very influential and knows how to reach out on social media. No, I'm saying for first-time voters, and I have young people in my house that are first-time voters. No, and I reject your animosity there. Okay, if you have someone that does not understand the voting process and they don't feel like they can vote, are you going to say, "Well, let me show you"? Or are you going to have someone that understands the system, understands social media, and get out to the people to say, this is how it's done? Now, whether you agree on who they are, you have to be able to get out to those people. And if you can't get out to them, are you solving the problem? No, you're not, right? So that's my opinion. I think he's done a great job by getting the young people to say, I want to vote and I want to be part of the process. Now, whether you agree or not agree with who he hires, that's just the way it is. I mean, that's my opinion.
I guess so, because everybody wants to discuss that rather than the 16-year-olds. Okay. Okay.
I just thought it was significant to bring up because it hasn't been brought up. And apologies if it occurred to you. But when we were talking, when this gentleman brought up in the ballots, I was not aware of Track My Ballot. This is the first time I've ever heard of that. Mostly because I expect the government to not be so tech savvy. So them having that is actually really significant. And I was thinking if you were to put information into a ballot where it's like you were talking about the wet signature and renewing that, that's its whole own process. Is if it's possible, as simple as including that QR code and what it is, that would be incredible because then you're directly going to each and every voter who receives a ballot in this county. And I just think
Okay.
that would be great.
It's been on the instructions for several years already.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
So people have a limited attention span and they don't read all the instructions. And we only have a limited space in real estate on the instructions. And last year, the state implemented new legislation, which takes up about a third of one side of the page in things that we have to state legally, which yeah, it takes up the real estate on the ballot. Legislators don't understand how valuable that real estate is on that instruction sheet. But it's tough. We have to comply with law. We have to give enough information. And it's kind of abbreviated to get it all on there because people won't read it if it's straight text. So there's some graphics on there. So it kind of is engaging as much as we can. We actually won an award for our instruction last year. So we put a lot of effort into it, but we can't get everything on there. And it's part of civil engagement. Those people that know and are engaged civilly, they just kind of look at it and they know already what to do, but we have to have that on there. So we're trying to get more on there, but it's difficult. So there's been a request to end the 16-year-old issue, and we can end the video and go into addressing your specific concerns about Kai. Absolutely, yes.
I did. I just wanted to bring up. I've been trying to work with Lanny Chapman actually, and I'd like to get with you afterward because I've had an idea to make a social media post that we can have a dummy account created to show how easy it is to register to vote and go through that process, but record it in social media format, right? Where it fits in like a TikTok video. It's not a YouTube video.
Right.
So love to connect with you after.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, because she's been trying to work with the Lieutenant Governor to get the permission, right? Because you can't just create a dummy account and you have to market and all this stuff. So maybe with her and you, we can like expedite that process.
That would be great. Lanny's great. Yeah.
My question, so maybe you said this before. I came in late, obviously. I have the Track My Ballot, and it's awesome because it tells me when it gets sent to me, so I know to be looking out in the mail for it. It says when you receive it. It says when it gets counted. It's awesome. I'm really surprised to hear that not very many people are using it. You probably said a number. I can't remember what you just said. My question for you is twofold. I'd love to hear what you and the county are doing for that outreach, because that sounds like one of the biggest things to me as far as outreach is, not only for the young people, but for everyone. How can we get more people? And then my other question, this is going to be interesting. Looks like a lot of people are excited to be here and to talk with you. So then you get a second one back. What would you ask of us to help you in that process? So first, what are you doing? Second, what would you ask of us to help with that?
So actually, the state has put a lot of money into advertising ballot tracks. There's been ads on there for several years now to try and get engagement with it. It's on our instructions. I think it's even on our ballot envelope, isn't it? Yeah, it's on the envelope and in the instructions. so we just, I don't know how much more we can. We are, if we wanted to spend a lot of money on the taxpayer money, we could do more. But then that's reaching out to the public for, increasing how much we spend on elections. But we are really trying to get that engagement. And then I think the second half of your equipment, what are we doing? What would
People are here. We saw stuff to come to this meeting, so maybe we can help out with that.
and that's why I invited all of you here. So to let me know what you guys can do to help us to reach out and get ballot tracks more used more, and to mainly the first time voters. Sharing it on social media. I've got a pretty good social following and I post stuff, but unless you repost it and share it, it only hits a small, very demographic. So if you have a social media account and you see something that you like it and share it. And that creates the algorithm that makes it grow bigger and bigger. If you just oh, that's nice, and just keep scrolling, it just stays dormant. So I have tried to get people like and share if you really like something that you see, to create more civil engagement.
Can I jump in there and kind of say a little bit of what we've been working
Yes.
on already? One of the big things that we were talking about in the meeting on Monday with that mother and her daughter was reaching out to the schools. We've reached out to UVU, BYU, Mountain Land as well. Or
Yeah, that was one of the big things she recommended,
Yes.
is Mountain Land.
Yeah.
We hadn't even thought about them.
And as far as just student population, they're one of the highest. So
Yes.
those are kind of the things we're doing. Freshman orientation is another idea, to include it, with all of the literature, with all of the socks or hats that a new freshman is going to get when they go through their orientation process. If they can also be told about, the process of registering or updating that signature, then it's up to them. They have the form, and that would be pretty easy to supply. So that's another thing that we're interested in pursuing. But I want to thank you guys all as well. I've written down a lot of these ideas, and that just gives us more time to work on it. There's a legislative approach, but there's also the interpersonal. I've seen that moms are particularly engaged. They're very good at talking to other moms. They're concerned for their children, and whether that's a missionary who's going off and needs to know about, okay, the mom can't fill out the ballot because that's a felony, whether it's just communicating that information or also communicating with their children about the opportunity to sign this kind of a form. That's something that we need your guys' help with, to reach out and get people excited. And I know it is a little bit contentious, but we're glad that you guys are here. We're glad that people are talking more about voting. That's a positive. And I appreciate the recommendation, Bronson. I don't think I'm going to put myself in front of a camera, but I'm happy to help with video editing. That's something that I also have expertise with. So
Yeah, and I hope you understand that I'm willing to be in front of you. I'm not hiding behind anything. I've asked you to come and discuss this with me. So I hope you can appreciate that. So as long as it's 16, because we do need, we're going to, okay. I'm
Could
sorry,
we on
18.
could we on the ballot, when we sign the ballot and we give our email and phone number, could we give permission to text and
Yeah, that was
automatically
actually
sign
brought
up
up.
for
That
ballot
was
track?
brought up at the beginning of the discussion
I know,
earlier.
but can we sign up for ballot track right there?
There's a QR code on the
No,
instructions.
but do it right on the ballot. Say automatically, just sign me up.
The state controls that. I don't control that. That's run by the state.
So this is for Kai. If you could encourage, if you continue this position, the first-time voters to do Track My Ballot. I have voted. My vote is counted because I do Track My Ballot. And I think that most young people have a phone in their hand and they check their texts. So that would make sense. That's the best way to get feedback from the young voters. And if we've got an influencer, that's what we want. We want an influencer who is non-biased, and we want the most, an influencer who's going to reflect our community effectively, which it doesn't look like we have.
So to kind of comment on that, I've told Kai that he can't use his influencer crowd. It's his knowledge on how to build it, but I don't want him to be conflating what he's doing here with what he's doing on his crowd unless it's something that's nonpartisan. Does that make sense? I mean, or tell me if I'm wrong. Go back.
To Kai. I think it's great that he has a big group, and I think it's great for that group, but it's extremely exclusive of over half our population. And if it's an influencer, which is, commendable to be able to influence people, but we want someone that's going to influence them, just
In a
influence
nonpartisan
them
way.
to vote. But if it's someone who's in that position, then they're already in the position to influence how they are, and obviously it's a conflict of interest for a majority of our population.
Okay. Okay, so any more 16 issues? Okay.
It's your call.
It's what? Okay.
Oh. Oh, okay.
So this is just on the stats. Jake might have asked this earlier, but do you know how, like, where Utah County even stands in these stats? Like, is it significantly higher or lower? Because often when we're thinking about solving a lot of these behavioral issues, there's a ceiling effect of what you can't even do. So I'm just curious where Utah County even falls in line with. Is it in the median like of?
Yeah, no, that's a
of
good
counties?
question. It's one of those statistics that's not compiled very well and disseminated. So I don't have getting data from different counties is.
So the LG would have that.
They may, but they don't share data very well across counties. The only reason I have it is because I sat down with the data for an extended period of time and compiled it together. And I haven't done it for every election. I'd love to do it every election, but it is a difficult, time-consuming process. But I did receive an email today because with that 4 digits that now is required on the ballot envelope, there was some discussion with another county clerk, and actually it was all the county clerks, but one of them presented some data, and it showed that they also are seeing a high rejection rate with the youth and also the very old. And we're trying to figure that out. And the rejection on the youth is a signature. The rejection on the older demographic is they're not writing the 4 digits right. I don't know if they just don't remember correctly or what. The most of the rejections that are the 4 digits are older voters. So that's going to take some more investigating to find out why that's happening. But the data is hard to put together sometimes. So I wish it were easier.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
Real quick. One of the things, though, that you'll notice if you have the sheet of the data is the cure rate is actually the highest among the oldest voters. So that shows that there are variables, there's interventions that we can pursue that would hopefully raise the cure rate among the younger voters. I don't know if we're going to reach I think 60% of cured votes of those who are in the 76 and up bracket, but certainly we're optimistic that we can improve it much
Yeah.
more than it is right now.
The older people, they're the ones that they're engaged with Mel because they're used to Mel. They're used to those kind of engagements. And so that's why I think that they're curing at a higher rate, but we need to get the youth up there also. Yes.
So and that idea like a fish doesn't know about water. Like if a fish is in the water and he's like, "Hey, what about the water?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?"
Right.
I think, I found it, I went to somewhere else that you spoke, and I thought it was really interesting that this population, but myself, I didn't know who Charlie Kirk was until this event happened.
Right.
My children didn't know who he was, and I don't know who Kai is. So in a way, it feels like I want to get these youth addressed and served, but I'm not sure Kai would be serving my grandkids because we don't really go in that circle. So I just think, and I believe that you were trying to be thoughtful and maybe just didn't know, like a fish doesn't know water. Like he's in an arena that it's not, like I could almost see it skew the youth. Like some of the youth are going to be able to follow up because they follow Kai or they're in that demographic. And the other thing, I'm just curious, and maybe I misread this, but it sounded like the position that Kai has, there's lots of like rigorous requirements, and it sounds like he doesn't meet those. So I'm curious how you're squaring that.
How I'm squaring that? That's a good question. So he is an appointed position, and those requirements are established by HR, and they're not listed as requirements, they're listed as recommendations. HR cannot require appointed positions to have any requirements. I could have hired a high schooler, but I don't want that. And that's why I hired Kai, is because if I win the election in the primary, then I'm going to go into a deep dive and hire the person I want. This is a temporary position. He knows it's a temporary position. I just have to get past this election before I can start deciding who I'm going to hire. And if I lose this election, I may not even replace him after he leaves. That way, because my opponent has already said he's going to fire whoever I have for chief deputy. So I'm not going to hire somebody to just get fired. So I just hiring somebody because I didn't want to destroy that person's life by saying, hey, come and work for me for 4 years and, be out in 6 months. So it is a temporary position. There are no requirements for that position. That was misled by the media. It was simply their recommendations. So yeah.
But it sounds like I get that this is a need. This is something that we want to address. Just bringing to your attention maybe a blind spot for you, or like a broader population maybe could be met in a different way.
And that's why I'm calling on everybody. I have sent out on my social media, get engaged. I've tried to join more left-leaning groups, but they haven't accepted me into their group yet. So I'm trying to reach out to everybody. This is not about Republican right-wing voters. This is about everyone. And I'm trying to make that. I don't know how much stronger I can say that. I'm not limiting myself to his influence. He came as an influencer with an idea on how to reach out to people that it's his people. I would like any influencer to work with them to get their group. It's just a snowball effect. I throw the pebble into the water and see where it grows. And I just don't have the ability to throw in 10 pebbles. I've got funding to doing one and see where it grows. I'm trying to grow it. I'm sincerely trying to reach out to everybody. I'm not trying to disenfranchise anyone. I am truly reaching out to everyone.
Can I ask another question? Just real
Yes.
quickly.
Yeah. So we are going to end, and this is 16 or 18-year-old first time?
It is. So,
Okay.
Okay. I used to work in college outreach, and we worked on promoting certain messages to the students coming in, the students who were coming from the high schools, a number of different ways we reach them. And one of the things that was really important for us is to understand the demographic of how many of these kids are really even in college, where are the rest of them, what are these kids doing, and then where do we find them? And so I'm just curious, did you guys have any, or you may have mentioned this earlier, we came in a little late, but have you had any exposure to understanding in our county where these kids are or where they are? In other words, are they all, in college? Are they all working at, some fast food place? Where are they, and how, so that you know where you're targeting these kids?
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't gather that data in a voter record. So I'm just dealing with the data that I have. There's nowhere on the registration form that says, are you a student? I don't have that. And that was very difficult even just to reach out to parents of that, because we don't have that link, who are your parents? So it was kind of hard digging in the data to find the 18 to 21-year-olds, and then to figure out who are their parents so we can reach out to them.
Yeah.
It's struggling with the data points that we
yeah,
have.
yeah, not having that source is
Yeah.
because it'd be great to have that.
Yeah, would love it. Okay, any more first time?
All right. So again, I don't comment on these a lot. We do have a small number of other influencers that are within Utah County. Most that we may be able to also incentivize to promote the vote. I can talk to you about them later, but we did at one point have the late Grant Thompson, along with the gentleman behind the company, Not a Wheelchair, I believe Jerry Rig Everything. We should be able to try and reach out to them as well. They do have a fairly large audience that we could reach from via their audience, and they are Utah County natives, so there is a likelihood they will reach out.
Yeah, if you could send me their links on Instagram or wherever they are, I can reach out to them. I just can't. I can't employ them. That's just kind of what happened. That's the way it is. But I am reaching out in every way that I possibly can, and I hope you don't think that I'm just reaching out to radical right. I'm not. This is about everybody. So we're going to stop. Is it a first-time voter issue? No. As long as it's the first two concepts, not the last. Is it about? We can still talk about it. We can still go on. I just have to end the video. Yeah. So if you want to stay, I can stay, but I have to end the video. Anybody else for first-time voters on video? Okay. We're okay. Okay, quick. This last one.
So I was one of the people that got my ballot rejected my first time voting. So I actually really like this incentive to get out more on social media, to make a better presence, have more universities and stuff reach out to people to get it. So I'm just letting you know I'm all in favor of this, and it would have helped me out at my age of 18 and had my first vote count.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the video is going to end, so there's no video evidence of you guys massacring me. Okay? I am willing to talk as long as you want to talk, but we do have to end the video. So thank you for coming out. I really, really appreciate it. And I appreciate the ideas. Kai's written all the ideas down. And I'm going to watch the video again. So really, I do appreciate it. We're trying our hardest. So I hope you can appreciate that. Thank you very much.